Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views. And we're going to be switching gears now to a very, very concerning story. South Africa's rising kidnapping cases are once again under the spotlight, with security experts warning that the country may be witnessing a shift towards more sophisticated and financially motivated abductions, including something that I learned yesterday, what is called express kidnappings. We're going to find out what that is exactly, and this new modus operandi of these rapid abductions, where victims are typically forced to withdraw money or transfer funds before being released, and often within a matter of hours. It's very, very quick. Analysts say the trend reflects an evolving criminal economy that is becoming faster, more urbanized, and increasingly difficult to predict. And to help us unpack these concerning developments, we're joined by a crime and security expert, Professor Jacob Mofokeng. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to News and Views. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure is all ours, and we really appreciate you joining us for this very important conversation on what is a matter of security. I want to kickstart with, your analysis, your perspective. How would you characterize the current kidnapping landscape in South Africa, if I can even put it that way?
Well, we have noticed that it has been, how criminals have adapted to the use of, banking apps. We understand that, the banks, because they were cutting their overheads, and then they had to maybe also to minimize, their customers to move around, carrying cash. We know that years back, the customers used to be targeted whenever they will go to the branches to make withdrawals. Then there was a shift, and then from that kind of traditional ways of banking into the use of digital banking. So now we realize that how criminals now have adapted. So it is also, international perspective also, that then the issue of express kidnappings, the use of apps where, victims will be, kidnapped for a particular time. So it's something that is evolving. And 4 provinces, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, and Mpumalanga, account for over 80,000 of all reported kidnappings across South Africa. While the national average sits at roughly 50 kidnappings per day, each of these 4 provinces face distinct dynamics, target profiles, and syndicate operations. Adding to this comparative multi-province overview, we see that Gauteng, nationally is over around, minus 51, commuters, everyday tech users. These are the people that have been targeted, students, business owners. In KwaZulu-Natal, around 20%, foreign nationals, prominent local traders, transport operators. Western Cape, around 6%, township business owners, bazaar shops, construction executives. In Mpumalanga, we've got those that have been targeted, logistics drivers, border commuters, rural business owners.
Very, very concerning. Are we seeing almost a shift from opportunistic kind of kidnappings to what I think almost looks like an organized syndicate, that's driving these operations? Is the shift towards more that where there are groups essentially that are now have formed to be syndicates that are paid to kidnap people, or they do it to, as you mentioned, extort money and get ransoms?
Well, it's both, my brother. There are those that are watching, the phenomenon or the response of the South African Police Service, and then they will mimic the professionals. But then they are using, the 3 distinct operational methods dominating, across the provinces. The first one is what you call express kidnappings. Remember, there will always be individuals who will want to take chances, as much as there are those who will go for business owners. Those are professionals, because then they will, do thorough analysis, profiling. But there will be those who will go for opportunistic if then, like now, they might be watching to understand that, well, what are the challenges of, confronting the law enforcement, and whether they will be able to, to also put hands to wherever there are opportunities. Remember, kidnappings, they evolve, from, the case where in the past professionals will go for cash in transit, but now instead of taking vehicles, they realize that, well, it's better to take the person who's driving a vehicle, that person, especially in Gauteng, where most of people are having smartphones, and that's where people are carrying quite a number of cash. So there will be, targeting certain areas where they will see that, what will be the risk versus, the attempts that they are trying to do. So then we have express kidnappings, which now makes up to 80%, probably in Gauteng. Victims are intercepted during a routine hijacking or a driveway robbery. We also have what you call digital honey trap, particularly through dating apps like Tinder or Green. Syndicates create highly sophisticated fake profiles, exploit human vulnerability. Then thirdly, we have what you call traditional ransom. These are, where professionals are normally, targeting high-stake, victims, which involve meticulous profiling and trick of high net worth individuals.
Prof, I want us to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to focus on that last point that you made, because I think there was a time, I think it was sometime last year or the year before, where we saw these high-profile kidnappings of business people and people who, have, as you mentioned, high net worth. And you mentioned now that we're seeing a shift to more what has been described as express kidnappings, where it could be literally anyone who has a cell phone and has a banking app and can transfer money very, very quickly. I want to touch on the decline of one over the other. Why are business people, less attractive now? Is it because police got hold of the modus operandi, or it's just a bit more difficult to do so? Or, it's express kidnappings are proving to be more profitable? I don't know. We'll touch on that after the short break, because I think it's very, very important to note.
Okay. At Dynasty Islamic, we believe your financial future should grow with purpose and in line with your values. We specialize in Sharia-compliant financial solutions designed to protect, grow, and preserve your wealth. Whether it's investment planning, risk cover, or structuring your legacy, our approach is rooted in transparency, integrity, and ethical principles. Too often, people invest without knowing if their money aligns with their beliefs. At Dynasty Islamic, we change that, offering you clarity, confidence, and peace of mind. Let us help you build a future that's not only financially secure, but spiritually aligned. Dynasty Islamic, where your wealth meets your values. Get in touch with us at info@dynastyislamicfas.co.za, visit www.dynastyislamic.com, or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations reservations. Call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Albeit Lodge, your true home away from home. Albeit is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Albeit has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albeitlodge.co.za.
Tonight, a child in a shack will try to sleep through the cold. No heating, no insulation, just thin walls and a biting cold. African Muslims Agency is on the ground, reaching families in informal settlements across South Africa with blankets and winter essentials. Help us spread warmth this winter. For 180 Rand, give a blanket. For 360 Rand, a full winter pack. One gift, one less night in the cold. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makudiri, and I'm in conversation with crime and security expert, Professor Jacob Mofokeng. And we're talking about the trends around kidnappings here in South Africa. There seems to be a change in the modus operandi of how these syndicates at this point go about committing this very heinous crime, which has proven quite profitable over the years. And Prof, I want to touch on that. Thank you so much for staying with us. The fact that in recent years, we've seen, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, where there was almost a prevalency. You'd see on the news video footages doing the rounds of very prominent high net worth individuals being kidnapped, and that seemed to be the flavor of the day. But you mentioned something quite I think interesting and important, especially for the rest of us ordinary South Africans, that there's a new phenomenon called express kidnappings, where anyone, you and I, it doesn't matter how much money you have, as long as you have a cell phone and an app, you can also be abducted and be forced to make these transactions quite quickly, and you are released in a matter of hours. Why do you think there was a change between these two modus operandi, way of doing things? Because one seemed like, it was very, very profitable for these syndicates. They would get a high net value individual and they would demand a ransom, which in many cases it was paid, and it was a lot of money, compared to this almost new style of doing things, where just ordinary people who probably wouldn't have that much amount of money, but we're seeing the trend leaning to that side. Why the change between the two from your point of view?
Well, it is the economics of the shift, the criminal return of investment. So to understand why traditional professional kidnappings are declining, while express kidnappings are absolutely exploding, we have to look at this through the lens of criminal economics. Criminal syndicates in South Africa have essentially adopted corporate efficiency. In the past, professional kidnappings targeted high net worth, as you did indicate, individuals, top-tier corporate executives or wealthy international investors. These operations were massive undertakings. They required months of pre-surveillance, deep financial intelligence, the hiring of safe houses, guards, and vehicles. But criminals realized that while the payout of a high-profile target is massive, the overhead costs, the timeline to get paid, and the sheer logistical friction are incredibly high. Express kidnapping completely flips the scripts. It offers syndicates immediate cash flow with a fraction of operational effort. So the second major driver of this, that we need to provide to our viewers of this decline is the asymmetrical police response. When a high-profile billionaire or prominent foreign national diplomat or a child from a wealthy suburb is abducted, it triggers a catastrophic level of law enforcement hit. The SAP's National Anti-Kidnapping Task Team is instantly activated. Elite intelligence units, private security tracking companies, and hostage negotiations experts converge on the syndicate. Safe houses are raided, phone lines are tapped, and criminals are either gunned down in shootouts or put away for life. With express kidnappings, criminals completely bypass this police radar because the entire crime is over within 2 hours or 4 hours. And because the victim is released traumatized but alive on the side of the road, it is rarely reported to specialized national units in time. In fact, many victims are so terrified by the threats made to their families, and they report the incident simply as an armed robbery or vehicle hijacking. By keeping the crime small, rapid, and low profile, syndicates avoid the wrath of elite police task teams. Thirdly, it's technology. The closing of physical brick and mortar bank branches across, most of provinces, Gauteng and South Africa, forced the banking sector to go completely digital. Criminals watched this shift and adapted. They realized that they no longer needed to plan elaborate, bank heists or target highly secured ATMs. Every single citizen, as you rightly indicated, becomes a moving target. And hence now we have this surge of express kidnappings.
Very concerning. My next question, I think, is one that even our listeners would be interested in hearing. How do we protect ourselves, especially as ordinary South Africans who, as you mentioned, always have our phones with us, and our phones, fortunately or unfortunately in this case, have those banking apps? Is there a way that you can protect yourself? Is there a way that you can, make yourself not a target of these kidnappings?
Rightly so. I think we should try to avoid our footprints on digital, and, it's not only individuals, adults that are being, kidnapped, but also our children. But let us avoid, affording children to have spent excess, unlimited, unmonitored time, over the smartphones, because that's where now they are also being hijacked. But it's not for us to, to create a phobia, but it's just for us to be, wise and be aware that, anytime you step out of your house, you could have been profiled. And, we meet a stranger who, for some reasons, is now interested to say, well, I'm your friend and all those things. So let us just not try to be pampered by things that we cannot substitute. Let us be wise and always be in control of our lives.
Crime and security expert, Professor Chiko Mofokeng, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing those very, very important tips on how we can protect ourselves to kidnappings, and I think most importantly, the trends that you've witnessed. It's been a really eye-opening conversation. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for it.
Sheesh. Yeah, man. Very, very scary reality there, knowing that, because it used to be the trend, man. I'm not sure if you guys remember a year, 2 years ago, the trend was business people, wealthy individuals, and it would make headlines because these people had lots of money, and they would be abducted, and there would be these ransoms, big amounts of money that would be requested from their families, and they would be paid, and the story would disappear just like that. But in recent days, man, feels like all of us could be targets now. And simply because these criminals, these syndicates, are evolving with the times, and now understand that you and I now walk around with our cell phones that have banking apps that have our money, and monies that can be accessed at any time. All you need is your thumb or your face these days just to open your phone's biometrics, and you're in your banking app. And it's become so crazy because you can even now apply for loans quickly on your phone. and they get approved instantly. So they've realized that, and they've switched up their modus operandi. Why go for the high-profile criminal who's high risk? Because I'm sure as you heard from the professor there, they attract a lot of attention from law enforcement because they are high value, they have a high net worth. Obviously, unfortunately, it's the case in this country. When you have a lot more money, it looks like the government seems to take care of you a bit more than someone who doesn't. So they're like, that's too high risk. And it takes a lot of time and preparation, and it takes a lot of meticulous attention to detail, while they can just grab you on the side of the road while you're on your way to buy bread. Scary, scary, scary times. You can engage with us. Our studio line is 011-6800-355. On WhatsApp, 061-766-0355. How do you protect yourself from such an eventuality? The reality that you could be a victim of a kidnapping. Do you try and change your route, how you travel every single day, or, make it less predictable? Professor spoke about your digital footprint. There are people that post every single aspect of their lives, where they're having lunch, where they're attending a meeting, where they go to school, where they stay. And that makes it easy for you to be tracked. Children also, people that post their kids in school uniform, post where they've taken their kids for birthday or where they plan to take them. Those things make you a target. How do you go about protecting yourself? What steps have you put in place to make sure that you tie your camel, so to say? Because it is scary times that we're living in, and no one is spared. It'll be interesting to hear. Continue to follow us on our various social media pages. Send us a WhatsApp voice note on 061-766-0355, or our studio line. You can give us a call on 011-6800-355. This has been yet another insightful, educational, important edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for staying with us for the past 2 hours. I'll be back with you again next week, Tuesday, for a brand new week. We will be doing it all over again. Otherwise, from myself, Salailo Makwidira, and everyone that made today's edition a possibility, it's bye for now and sharp sharp.